Good morning and welcome to the first episode of McCLAIN in the Morning in its entirety. Thank you for tuning in for our show. Today we have a guest that has really been hunting and fishing for a lot of his life, and it's someone right here in Logan High School that you may not expect. So today I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Rob Ramage.
Thank you, John. It's good to be here.
Oh, thanks for coming. I guess I just want to start out with, Mr. Ramage, how long have you been hunting?
I started hunting probably when I was 13, 14, so about 42 years. But I started fishing probably when I was 5 years old. My grandfather was a fly fisherman and taught me how to fly fish. So I've been doing that consistently since I was about 5 or 6.
Oh, okay. All right. So what is your favorite type of fish to fish?
I'm a big I love fishing for steelhead trout. All right,
Okay.
Steelhead are a type of they're a trout, but they act like a salmon. They get really big. They live in lakes, and then in the spring or sometimes in the fall, they swim up into rivers and they spawn. And when they spawn, they're not like salmon. They don't die. They swim back out into the lake, so they get huge. And the saying is that steelhead are kind of like fish on steroids. They go absolutely crazy. So they're very hard to catch. When you do hook one, they're really exciting. They just go running all over the river, and so it's a real challenge. And I've gotten to the point in my life where I'm really enjoying that kind of fishing because it's such a challenge. A lot of times it's in really miserable weather.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, but when we get a snow day here in Logan, most of the time, especially a few years ago, I had my car packed and I would drive all the way to Cleveland. And I would go steelhead fishing in the Cleveland rivers in the middle of winter, all day when everyone else was down here was staying in their houses.
Right.
So it's
where the roads are unsafe.
Where the roads are unsafe. That's
Uh-huh.
exactly
Yeah.
right. So.
Yeah. I remember there was one time my family took a vacation to Alaska, and we went out on an all-day deep sea fishing trip, and the swells were like 7 feet. But we brought home like 250 pounds of fish.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the craziest one was pulling in a halibut. Have you ever been halibut fishing?
I've never been. I want to go to Alaska. It's on my bucket list, but I
Yeah.
hear they're really difficult.
He shot it when it got close enough to the boat because it's like 145 pounds. You pull the halibut up on, and so it doesn't injure somebody on the boat, they shoot it with a 410.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So it was, and it took like 45 minutes to reel it in.
Yeah, they say that they're like a flatfish, right?
Yeah.
So they lift somebody told me one time it's like trying to reel in a sheet of plywood.
Yeah, like 300 feet down.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so this could be a hunting or fishing story. What is the most thrilling hunting story that you have ever experienced?
When I thought about this question, there's so many different stories over the years, but I would have to say probably the most thrilling or scary thing that's ever happened to me, hunting-wise. I was duck hunting on Lake Huron one time, and weather plays a part in everything. And I had made a decision to go out and hunt on the Lake Huron shore, but I had accessed it through it's a long story, a series of river channels, and the weather changed, and the wind came in off the lake about halfway through my hunt. Long story short, I ended up swamping my boat right at shore. Had to basically go diving for my gun. It was a mess. The temperature that day was about 6 degrees, so I was soaking wet. I had to carry my boat, all my decoys, my gun, and all the things that I had with me by myself back to my truck, which was a little over a quarter mile away.
And probably a wind chill too.
Yeah, wind chill was way below zero. It was a pretty miserable day, so that was probably my scariest thing. Most exciting thing, or scary I guess could be too, I was fly fishing one time. Fly fishing, very, very dangerous when you're in a lightning storm. And so as soon as I see lightning or hear thunder, I find some place to sit. I put my fishing pole as far away as I can because they're like lightning rods. And I sat down, was just going to wait the storm out, pulled my hood up over me, and I had seen bear tracks in that area quite a bit, but I'd never seen the bear. Well, most people don't know this, but bears smell really, really bad. And I was sitting there right next to the river, and there was a whole lot of thick brush behind me. And while I was sitting there waiting for the storm to end, I started smelling something like rotting, dead, flesh. And at first I thought, man, an animal's died around here. And then it dawned on me what it was. So I got pretty scared. I started talking and making noise. You're
Yeah.
supposed to do that so the bear's not surprised. And I never heard the bear, never saw the bear. But when the storm ended and I got my stuff together, I walked back to my truck and found the tracks where it had walked past my truck and trailed it right down. And it was about 15 feet behind me in the brush where I was sitting. So that was a little exciting.
Yeah.
I've seen bears quite often when I'm fishing, and it's always fun to see them, but it's also a little... I stepped out of my pickup truck one time, and there was a bear that stepped out of the woods 25, 30 feet away from me, and that was pretty scary. It was more scary to tell my wife about it than,
Right.
than it was to actually experience.
Right. So what advice do you have for people who are beginning hunters or beginning fishers and maybe just hunt the occasional deer when we have the day off of school?
Gotcha.
You know?
What I recommend is don't try to do everything. All right. Find something. I'm sorry. Let me turn that around. Do as many different kinds of hunting as you have the opportunity to do until you find something you really like. You don't have to have lots of really expensive equipment. By the time you get to my age, I've invested quite a bit of money and stuff. But when I first started, especially in fly fishing, my grandfather bought me a rod that he bought at a Kmart. It was a fiberglass fishing pole. It cost him about $6, and I still have that rod and still, use it to teach other kids how to fish. But just go out and experience as many things as you can. Deer hunting, a lot of kids around here deer hunt, but a lot of people tell you it's not the easiest thing to do for the first time. So, I encourage people to go out, make sure you take the hunter safety courses, learn to be safe. The one thing that I'm extremely proud of is that when I go out, I do everything as safely as I possibly can. And I'm always trying to make sure that what I'm doing is not endangering myself or someone else. So be safe. But try to get as many experiences, and don't be afraid to ask someone who knows how to do that. An example is we had a group of students here at Logan High School about 4 or 5 years ago. They wanted to learn how to duck hunt, and their parents were not hunters. So their parents talked to me and said, hey, would you take our kids out? And so I started working with those kids, and we started learning how to, teaching them how to duck hunt. And I got to, have access to a lot of really good land, and we had a lot of great hunts. We still hunt together now, and those boys all are on their own, hunting on their own.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, so find somebody that really likes it and knows something about it, and see if they'll help you. It's a big thing to try to get more kids into the outdoors.
Okay. And you said deer hunting, it may not be the easiest. What would you suggest is like the first, to get started?
That's a great question. Most people, especially learning gun safety and how to be quiet in the woods, is hunting squirrels.
Oh, okay.
Squirrels are not the easiest thing to hunt, but there are lots of them out there. You learn to be quiet. You learn to be observant. There's a lot of different tricks to squirrel hunting, and it's pretty good eating too. A lot of people, kind of flinch at it a little bit, but squirrel hunting is a great way to put something that's pretty tasty on the table too.
Okay.
So squirrel hunting is really an easy way, and doesn't require a whole lot of experience, and you don't have to be the best shot in the world because you're using a shotgun most of the time.
Right.
And but again, that's a good way to get into it. And then once you decide if you like it, then you can start branching off into other things. But a lot of people around here do eventually deer hunt, and one thing about deer hunting, you got to be quiet.
Yeah.
So learning to squirrel hunt is a good step into that.
Yeah. And you said that you have kind of passed this love on to some students here or young people in the area. I guess when you said you've mentioned your grandfather a couple times. Was there anybody else, or in hunting or fishing was really your grandfather?
I had two grandfathers that were really into the outdoors. My one grandfather was a Presbyterian minister, and he actually had a church in Montana for a while, which sounds just like a river runs through it, the movie, but that's exactly what it was like. He was the Presbyterian minister in Manhattan, Montana. He learned to fly fish there, and he's the one that taught me how to fly fish. And I have since gone back and fly fished and actually been to the church he was minister in. But I love Montana. It's Mecca for fly fishermen.
Yeah.
So that's he got me really interested in it years and years ago. My other grandfather was a hunter, and he took me squirrel hunting when I was young, and then took me deer hunting, and encouraged me to continue to hunt rabbit hunting. My family has a tradition when we still lived on a farm that we grew up on, that we would rabbit hunt on Thanksgiving Day. So that was a big deal where all the men went out rabbit hunting, and then we came back and had our big dinner. So both of those men. My father loved to hunt, but unfortunately he was a full-time teacher and full-time farmer, so there wasn't a lot of time for that. And that's probably my one regret, is that as I got older, my father's health declined, and he was unable to go hunting with me as much. I did take him fishing one time, fishing for salmon. He caught a salmon like this. It was huge.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big highlight for him, but he never got to hunt as much as I have, and so that's kind of made me always feel like I need to take every opportunity that I have. So I hunt quite a bit, I fish quite a bit, and I'm always looking to take people out and try to carry that over to someone else. So, but those grandfathers, they really kind of lit a fire for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned eating squirrel or rabbit. Those are obviously like pretty small animals. So like to make a meal, I guess it would vary, like for Thanksgiving or just like sitting down for a regular dinner. How many squirrels do you have to bring in to provide for
well, as you can see, I probably could take a lot of squirrels to feed me. No, a couple one squirrel would do if you were
per person. So like a baked potato.
Like
when you're making mashed potatoes, everybody gets
a lot of times for squirrel too, because squirrel it's a rodent. So it's pretty tough meat. A lot of times what I did is I would boil it down until the meat just fell off the bone, and then make a stew or a gravy and put that over biscuits. That's a good way to do it. There are so many recipes. The internet is awesome now for recipes. All the duck hunting and goose hunting that I do, a lot of the time I don't have anybody at home that eats it. My wife doesn't particularly care for it. She's tried it at times, but so I do enjoy it, but I don't always bring it home for her to eat. A lot of times if I'm hunting with others, I give it to them and let them take care of it. But the recipes out there now are just spectacular. You can find so many different ways. So I really like duck and goose meat. Anything that's can be fixed in a manner that you can kind of expand it. Ducks don't have a lot of meat on them, but you put them with rice and vegetable. It's a pretty good meal.
All right. And just one last question. So I know that the reason we thought to do this interview is a lot of students here at the school think that you just live at the school just like every other teacher here, and that you don't do anything besides eat, breathe, and sleep referrals, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So I guess to bring this together, were there any concepts that you have learned in hunting and fishing that have made you a better high school principal that you've applied?
I don't know. I suppose you'd have to ask the students if I'm a good principal or not. I guess
tracking.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. No, I'll be honest with you. I love puzzles. I do 4 or 5 crossword puzzles a day. I do 4 or 5 Sudokus a day. I don't do them while I'm at work usually, but I do them in the evenings when I'm relaxing, sometimes in the morning just to get my brain warmed up. Hunting is very often, it's a puzzle. I tell people, I'll use the example of duck hunting. If I go out onto the lake and I'm by myself, first of all, ducks have amazing eyesight. So they can see you, they can see your face. If you look up in the sky and the sun's shining, your face will light up and they will see you and they'll fly away. So you have to be able to hide yourself. You have to be able to call them. And calling, if you ever listen to somebody with a duck call, I'm average at best. There are people out there that are phenomenal. So you have to be able to call and sound like a duck. Then you have to be able to put decoys out that look like ducks, but also make them look like a natural setting. Is this how ducks would swim when they're out there? So you have to hide, you have to be able to call, you have to have good decoys and a good setup, and then do all of that, and the ducks come in, you still have to hit something that's flying at about 60 miles an hour.
Right.
So I love that challenge and that solving the puzzle, and if, hey, they're not working, what can I fix and change?
All right.
As a principal, I'm solving puzzles all the time.
Yeah.
Who did this? How did they do this? How to prevent certain things. But it isn't, I don't look at my job as how do I catch as many people as possible.
Right.
I look at my job as how do I prevent as many people from doing things as possible by either thinking ahead, planning ahead. Hey, there's a problem here. What can we do to maybe keep kids from getting themselves into trouble? And sometimes it comes down to, obviously, you just have to, give them a consequence. But I look at each student as a puzzle, and some of them are pretty difficult to solve because it's hard to get them to either understand, what they need to do or how they can solve their own problems and issues. But I would say overall, the problem-solving part of that, and then patience.
Yeah.
My wife thinks I'm crazy. I just tell her I'm passionate.
Yeah.
But I've gone out, let's say goose hunting, laying down on the ground in a blind that lays on the ground from 5 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening. Obviously, you get out and walk around some, but we're outside the whole time. And I did that one time when the temperature got up to 5 degrees that day with 30-mile-an-hour winds. So the wind chill was about minus 20. And I was out there all day and had a ball.
Yeah.
She thinks I'm out of my mind.
Yeah.
But the patience it takes to do that a lot of times with students and with staff, you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to, think more about them than yourself, and not let myself get upset and so forth. So that kind of control helps a lot. Sometimes you lose it a little bit, but most of the time that kind of patience pays off. So it's I think they go hand in hand pretty well.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for being our first interviewee today for McCLAIN in the Morning. You see that we do have Deer Park water.
Very good.
So we treat our guests right here on McCLAIN in the Morning. And so we stay tuned for future episodes. We will try to make this happen every week or every other week. I'd like to thank Mr. Stone, TV2, and our producer, Wyatt Ellinger. And friend who holds the microphone that I don't have in class. So eventually, we'll get to know him better. Mason, thank you, audience member. So thank you, Mr. Ramage. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your weekend, and see you next time on McCLAIN in the Morning.
Very good. Thank you.
We're so glad that Mr. Ramage decided to be our first guest on McCLAIN in the Mornings for the first full episode. Now the men's chorus has put together their account of what they think Mr. Ramage's first hunting experience was like and where he became inspired. And of course they thought it was in a place like men's chorus. Enjoy. So now we have some target practice. All right. So right here you see our deer. Okay. All right. Lock and load, boys. Lock and load. 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay. All right. And I think the first person I saw hit it was Rob Isaac Ramage over here. Everybody, come in and give Rob a round of applause. Congratulations. Now, of course, Men's Chorus is not sponsoring a hunter safety course, and I wouldn't really trust any of them to teach you how to hunt. But if you need any advice, go to Mr. Ramage. He'll help you out. Thanks for watching McCLAIN in the Morning.